Make sure it works. All right? So we have 2 times the square root of 15 minus 6 equals 0. This is my check. Starting under here was 15 minus 6. Woo! 9. What's the square root of 9? What's 3 times 2? And 6 minus 6? 0. It checks. Okay? So your solution was z equals 15. Now this one's a little different because it's not a square root, it's a cube root. Now real quick, if I had the cubed root equals -3, could I keep going? Yes. An odd root can have, or can be, negative. Okay? Because a negative times a negative times a negative, blah, blah. All right. What do you do first? Cube both sides. The radical's already isolated. There's nothing else over there. All right, so my first step is to cube both sides, which simply leaves me with x minus 4 equals 9. No, it doesn't. Sorry. 27. So, what's x? X is 31. Adding 4 to both sides. X equals 31. Check. It's 31 minus 4. And what's the cubed root of 27? 3. Okay, it works. So we're good. X equals 31. Now you may be saying, well, it always checks. Why do I have to waste my time checking? Because it may not always check. Did I skip one? Okay, here we go. Sometimes, now this is a, what do they call it in the book? An extraneous solution. Which means it takes a lot, okay? All right, the first thing is to isolate the radical on one side. Well, guess what? I have 2 radicals. Which one do I isolate? No, the bigger one. Okay, we're going to isolate the bigger one. We're going to have to square twice to get rid of all the radicals in this problem. So first thing I'm going to do is, since this is isolated, I'm going to try to get rid of this square root. And what I have to do is square both sides. Well, on the left, I'm simply left with x minus 15. That's it. It's good. But on the right, I have 3 minus the square root of x squared. What kind of problem is that? It's a FOIL problem. All right, now let's FOIL it together. All right, first times first is 3 times 3. Outer times outer is 3 times a negative square root of x, which is -3 square roots of x. Inner times inner is the same thing. And last times last is negative times negative square root of x times square root of x. What's that? X. The square root of x times the square root of x is the square root of x squared, which is simply x. Now, cleaning this up, can I add those 2 radical expressions together? Yes. All right, how do I add them together? Does the radical itself change? No. It's -3 and -3. What do those add up to? -6. Okay. Well, I still have a radical. So guess what? Now I'm going to try to isolate that radical. Which means I got to get rid of 9, I got to get rid of x, and I got to get rid of times -6. All right, well, let's start with 9. How do I get rid of 9? I subtract it from both sides. All right, let's look at x. How do I get rid of this? Subtract it from both sides. Oh, well, look, it just gets rid of it completely. All right, so now I have negative 24 is equal to negative 6 times the square root of x. What should I do next? Divide both sides by negative 6. Very good. So I have the square root of x is equal to 4. Can the square root equal 4? Yes, it can. Okay, so what's next? Square both sides. And I have x equals 16. Now, this was a long, drawn-out problem, so it's extremely important that we check. Okay, so if x is 16, coming back to our original problem, does this work out? Elizabeth says yes. Does everyone agree? No, why not, Nick? 16 minus 15 is 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. Okay? Here, the square root of 16 is 4, and 3 minus 4 is negative 1. Does 1 equal negative 1? No, it does not. So you see why you need to check. Because even though we actually got an answer, when we plugged it back in because of all the square roots and the square craziness, it didn't actually work. All right? So even though you got an answer, when you check, you see that it doesn't really work, so there's no solution. What should we do? Sean, what should we do? Hurley, what should we do?
Square both sides.
Square both sides. Thank you. This radical's already isolated, so let's just go with it. Okay, we're going to square both sides. On the left, we're simply left with 3x plus 1. On the right, we now have a what kind of problem? FOIL. I want you working your FOIL problem as I'm working it. When you do FOIL, you should have gotten 5x minus 2 square roots of 5x plus 1. We'll see how we got that. First times first. Square root of something times the square root of something. Same thing, just gets rid of it. It's just 5x. Outer times outer was a negative 1 times the square root of 5x. Inner times inner was negative 1 times the square root of 5x. And last times last was negative 1 times negative 1, which is positive 1. And then adding these two like terms together, I have negative 2 square roots of 5x.